Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Amplify Horse Racing Hangouts. I am your host, Anise Montpleasure. I'm also the president and co-founder of Amplify Horse Racing. If you've stumbled upon this and you are completely new to Amplify, never heard of it before, Amplify is a 501c3 nonprofit organization promoting or amplifying education and careers in the thoroughbred industry, especially for youth, young adults, any other newcomers who are looking for a way to get involved, and you just need that step one. So you've stumbled in tonight for the Horse Racing Hangouts, which is our monthly virtual series focusing on different industry careers and also fundamental skills that are necessary to those careers. So if you guys have seen some of our past episodes where we had a panelist on, sometimes we'll invite career professionals that all kind of pertain to a certain sector of the industry. And then other times lately, since we've been diving more intricately into those fundamental skills, sometimes we just fill up the whole episode with one person. And I feel like tonight is really going to be that episode, which is why we are going to have the one and only Dr. Natalie Heights, who I'll be so excited to introduce to you in a moment to talk about veterinary medicine. So first off, just a couple quick announcements. If you have not yet listened to the Amplify Horse Racing podcast, I highly recommend you check that out. We frequently post them on our social media. You can find them on Spotify, Anchor, multiple, Apple Podcasts. I'm probably forgetting a couple other podcasting platforms. So you can pretty much find it anywhere. But coming up this next week, we're going to be recording an extra special episode all about current jobs in the industry, jobs that are being advertised right now that you can go apply for. And additionally, we're going to have a big Amplify announcement coming on Monday. So we'll talk more in depth on that on the podcast. So that is very cool. We've now, made it through the first two races in the Triple Crown. If you weren't following the Amplify coverage during the Kentucky Oaks, we did a really cool project featuring the day in the life of a groom of a Kentucky Oaks filly. His name is Mario Cordero. Her name was Maracuja. And grooms have such an instrumental role in the industry, and they're the closest caretakers of these equine athletes. And being a groom is an incredibly respectable career, and it oftentimes ends up being a job that many people do, regardless of the job or career that they aspire to have in the industry, to gain hands-on experience. So if you're curious in watching that, visit our Instagram. Check out our IGTV video about Mario and Maracuja, which will introduce you to him. And then under our highlights, you can see the full day in the life of Mario on Kentucky Oaks Day. So I know that was a couple weeks ago, but still a great tool that I want to let everybody know about. Okay, so here we are to today's episode. So as you guys know, I like to talk about careers that are maybe not really at the forefront of your mind, things that might be a little bit more off the beaten path, or just showing you different ways that you can apply skills or interests that might not be like one of those careers that's right there. A lot of times when people get into the industry, they think, I want to work in the thoroughbred industry or with horses. I can probably be a jockey or a trainer or a veterinarian, which are all completely amazing careers, but I haven't really highlighted those careers yet. And so especially veterinarians have such an incredible role in maintaining the health and the safety and, really the day-to-day care of horses, and then making sure that they live long, healthy, sustainable lives throughout their racing careers, afterwards, and throughout their breeding careers. So we're going to have Dr. Natalie Heights joining us tonight to talk all about what it is like to be a veterinarian. Quick, before I read her bio and bring her on, as you guys see, this little ticker at the bottom of the screen tells you that you can comment or send your questions by actually commenting on this video feed. So wherever you are, wherever you're watching, if you have questions for Natalie along the way, do leave a comment on this video and I will make sure that we address that question. And don't wait until the very end, because sometimes we get to the end and it's like, well, everyone, we've ran out of time. So start sending us your questions now. Dr. Natalie Heights is an associate veterinarian at Northrop Equine. Dr. Heights is an undergraduate from the University of Kentucky and then went on to graduate from Auburn University's College of Veterinary Medicine. Originally from Louisville, she's also a graduate of Presentation Academy as a Kentucky Governor's Scholar. After college, Dr. Heights went on to study and graduate from the prestigious Godolphin Flying Start program, whereafter she went to work at Hagyard for 2.5 years in the field department before coming over to NEQ. NEQ is an equine practice focusing on veterinary care for the equine athlete on and off the racetrack. Then they are based out of Louisville, Kentucky. Dr. Heights enjoys riding, horse racing, UK basketball, golf, tennis, spending time with her dogs, and cats. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Natalie Heights. Thank you so much for being on with me.
Thanks for having me.
Gosh, and it was an easy choice when I had to go looking for a veterinarian to bring on, because you were the first vet that I actually ever got to do kind of an educational ride along with to observe what a day in your life was like at that time.
Yes, you did. And it was probably right before the breeding season got kind of busy, if I remember correctly, like January or February of that year. So yes, I remember that day pretty well. So
yeah, and that's a great educational experience that I'd like to touch on a bit later, maybe the importance of young people who are looking at, even if they don't want to be a vet or even working in the veterinary field, ways that they can really gain experience. And I feel like shadowing or riding along with a vet can be a really great way to, absorb at least a little bit of their knowledge, but observe what they do in a day.
Yeah, I think it's just good just to get that exposure and just have a little bit of knowledge for when you come out or when we come out and do things to horses and stuff. So,
So I know that I touched on a little bit of your background in the bio, but you're from Louisville, Kentucky. So how did you get involved in the thoroughbred industry to begin with? Was it kind of natural growing up there, or what sparked that interest?
I guess you could say it's a little bit natural, or I was drawn to it. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, so the Churchill Downs and the Kentucky Derby were always a big part of our lives, being here. But probably the way I got attracted to the industry was my grandma was a big handicapper. She loved betting the ponies, as she called it. Probably because when she was younger, her mom ran a boarding house. So a bookie rented a room from them for years. So that's how my grandma got hooked on it. And so when she babysat us, my brother, my sister, and I, she took us to Churchill Downs, and we always sat by the rail and we just watched the ponies, and I just got hooked on it from there. And I always knew I loved animals and I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I just kind of meshed my two favorite things together, and here I am today.
So how early on did you realize you want to be a vet? Was that kind of one of those first jobs that somebody's like, Natalie, you should be a vet? Or how did that come into mind?
It was probably when I was a kid, I remember actually my mom found it. I remember when I was in the first grade, they ask you to write an activity like, oh, write what you want to be when you grow up. But my mom said there was probably 5 things on there, like an accountant, a teacher, and then a veterinarian was on there too. My mom's like, well, I guess you could be all those things or something if you wanted to. And I can't remember what the other 4 and 5 things were. But, I think I always was drawn to dogs as a kid, and I was always drawn to helping. My mom said if a kid fell on the playground, I was always the first one to go help them out. And so I think I just was drawn to helping animals and then helping horses as well came into play when I played sports. I loved athletics. And the equine racehorse is an athlete. They're professional athletes. And so being able to be their veterinarian, their doctor, is quite an honor. And I think that was the other reason I chose equine medicine out of doing small animal was just because I could work with these athletes and I could respect that from a different angle. So I'd say it started out pretty young, for sure.
I feel like I hear from a lot of friends who were involved in athletics, and it was kind of the parallels drawn between, you know, the thoroughbred industry or horse racing is an athletic sport. And so it's kind of an easy transition, regardless of what piece you want to be in, from going to, you know, being involved in athletics to then wanting to continue that, but with horses in some way.
Absolutely. And I don't think people people I think realize it, but you know, when you, or even just in day-to-day life, if you played sports growing up, you understand hard work, you understand determination, there's so many values in sports. I don't care if all you did was play t-ball one summer as a little kid, but you get these just values, you know, like competitiveness or just different things where you can just take them into any aspect of your life or responsibility. And you see that on the racetrack every day. I mean, there's hardworking people there getting up and going to work every day at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning just to get this horse to a race. And that pivotal moment of where it might only be for, you know, the 2 minutes, you know, all that led up to it is an amazing thing. I mean, to think about even before these horses are born, I mean, their matings were planned for a year in advance or something. So, but I think athletics plays a huge part in it, and people who play sports, they kind of understand that a little bit more, I think. But
so there was, I'm sure, a long winding road in between, you know, when you first decided you wanted to be a vet to actually becoming a vet. And I think that's something that, you know, maybe the whole school journey, depending on how people, you know, how much they like school and how long they're willing to study, can sometimes make or break whether they decide to continue on to actually become a veterinarian. So talk about your educational journey and how you laid out that path, because as I read in your bio, you had a lot of steps along the way. It wasn't just vet school and wham bam thank you ma'am. It was, you know, flying start. And tell us about, I mentioned, or I read, a scholars program that you were involved in.
Oh yeah, that was a summer activity in Kentucky. When you're in high school, they have what's called the Kentucky Governor Scholars Program. And it's basically, they take well-achieved, I should say, high school students in different areas. I mean, they want you well-rounded, not just being really smart and getting good grades, but do you accomplish something on the playing field? How about outside and extracurricular activities like, you know, the arts? Or are you really good? You know, are you a leader in your school with a club activity or something like that too? You have to have a pretty packed resume, and they send you off for a summer program. I was actually based at Morehead State University, and it's just a summer program where you are with other really well-rounded, smart students that come together. You exchange ideas. It's not really like a core learning program, but it's more of a smart kids summer camp. And I know, like in Morehead, I think I was mad because that was back before we all had cell phones, and they had no phone reception down there. So, I mean, I don't think kids these days would last down there. Here I am knocking Morehead, and there's probably someone on there. But, I mean, you know, it was a cool place. And no, it was a pretty cool program. I mean, there's so many things out there, I think, for people to get involved in. You just got to find your niche or find something that's going to make you grow into being a better person at the end of the day. And that's all that matters, really.
So that actually brings up a really good point, because I always try to ask, what would be some extracurricular programs that you think young people or youth who might be watching this could get involved in that could help them later on if they want to pursue becoming a veterinarian? Would it be something like that, or would it be something more specific and animal focused?
I'd say you don't I mean, you don't really need to, I don't think, go straight into doing science extracurriculars or something or other. Kind of like I said, I played sports and I also was involved in clubs and I mean, probably everything underneath the sun. My mom probably hated running my carpool. But I mean, as long as you find something you really love and whatever that it could be, just pursue it. I mean, if you really want to wake up one day and you're like, hey, I want to try chorus, go do it. Because when you get to be my age now, and I'm young, but I'm older, but you kind of can't do those activities anymore because you have to start working. You have adult responsibilities now. Or I got dogs and cats, and I feel like they're my kids and I take care of them. But enjoy it or try something new, because guess what? If you don't like it, then go do something else. So I think school was great because you could explore so many different avenues and do that while you're young, because maybe you think you want to be a vet, you think you want to be this or that, but when you really get into it, you're like, I don't know, that's not for me. Then it's like, hey, you're still young, you can change things up, and if people don't really care. But when you get older and you get down a path and you're like, I don't know if I like this, sometimes it's harder to navigate out of those channels. But I'd say, anything you can do that you can learn core skills, especially leadership, management, personal responsibility, working well with others, communication, just something you can get to learn. And like I said, whether that be on the playing field or in a club activity or getting involved in your community. I mean, there was plenty of volunteer hours I would have done at the Children's Hospital. And yeah, I didn't want to be a doctor, but learning compassion with kids that pediatric cancer or something, getting involved somewhere, or whatever avenue that might be, or in your church too, just something to get you out of the house, and you just you can explore different avenues, because you never know who you're gonna meet. And that's the other important factor. Like, I could be out somewhere and I start jibber jabbering to somebody, and you've realized, hey, you might have mutual friends, or there might have been a place you traveled to. That's another thing. The more you get involved in, you don't realize where it all could take you, whether it's over to Australia or whether it's to a different state. And I know we're in a COVID pandemic now, or hopefully I know there's a light at the end of this tunnel, but you never know who you're going to meet or where you're going to go. And that's the exciting thing. Because like my dad always told me when I was a kid, Natalie, because I was always like, Dad, should I get a job? Like, I need to get a job. And he's like, you're young. You're going to work the rest of your life. Enjoy it while you're young. And just like I said, I mean, I think one summer I went and did stuff with dolphins. And yeah, I'm not a dolphin now, but hell, that was one cool experience, man. When are you ever going to do that again? So don't think that, and that's one thing I'd tell you, if anything, I'm rambling now, but just enjoy things or go see new things. Don't feel like if you want to be a vet, you have to work in a vet practice every summer, until you get to vet school, because then you might miss out on something else that's cool, because you kind of, like I tell people, I try to diversify myself, because there are some days you come home and you had a really tough case and you bring it home with you. But it's nice sometimes to have an outlet from whatever that might be. Or like, my brother was a real good golfer, and he might have come home and he wanted to do something else just to get his mind off of whatever he took home with him from golf. So have those outlets, go explore new things. Don't just go down one path, because you might miss something. You might thought, hey, that's actually cool, I'd rather do this instead. So
yeah. So you're a graduate of the Godolphin Flying Start program. Well, we're both graduates, so we both experience that. Flying Start is one of those things. So for anyone listening who maybe missed our past episodes where we talked about Godolphin Flying Start, it's a 2-year international thoroughbred industry management program. So it's kind of like a master's degree in the thoroughbred industry. They take 12 applicants every year. Well, they have much more than 12 applicants, but they accept 12 people, and then you spend 2 years traveling as a group to 5 different countries to learn about the thoroughbred industry. And you're really immersed in and exposed to so much, from the marketing to the business side and the breeding and the racing and the veterinary medicine. So as you were going along that journey, did you ever think about pursuing something else? Because you went to vet school after Flying Start, correct?
Correct. And I got some criticism from doing it that route or going, people always say, well, if you want to do vet school, why are you going to do this management program? And I don't think, like I said, all my ranting before, I don't think people realize the more you're exposed to, the more you see, you really start to understand, like, more of a global vision, or you see things, more from a broader perspective. And I think that alone is key to from doing that program. And I loved it. And I mean, you kind of get experience in different avenues, or if I'm working on a horse, I might, while we're running fluids, when you got like about 5 minutes to, to pass, you might ask like the groom or the assistant trainer, hey, who's this horse by? What's it out of? And then they're kind of like, and then you're kind of sitting there, you're like, oh, Bernardini mare. You're like, that's pretty good. How, and then they're like, how does this girl know this? Don't you just know just book smarts, So it just kind of gives you a little extra edge to connect with people at a different level that they don't expect. And, but yeah, I did that program before vet school because I also thought too, hey, I really wanted to be a veterinarian. I have the qualifications to go to vet school, but I love racing. I love horse racing. That's a bigger passion of mine. So I thought, well, let's do this program, and maybe there's a different avenue that I'd rather do instead of going to vet school, which, would save me a lot more money. Then, I thought I'd keep my mind open. But, the other avenue I really liked was something completely different, was marketing, racetrack marketing, and working for a racetrack. I really liked that option, but I never really explored anything else. There's nothing else that drew me into it. And I had two really big mentors. And I think that's what made the difference too, because the two veterinarians that one I'd actually met through Flying Start, and the other one I had known kind of all of my life a little bit. I wanted to be like them. And so I never met anybody else that I was like, yeah, I want to be like them. So I think but no, I'm happy the route I took, and everyone's path's a bit different, or everyone's path could lead them somewhere else. But, so that's.
So then when it came to applying for vet school, how did you navigate that process with researching different schools? I'd imagine you applied to multiple. So how did you end up narrowing it down to Auburn and deciding that was going to be your choice?
Well, and that's kind of, I guess I took more of a simplistic route. There are at least over 30 vet schools in the United States. I did look into go to the Royal Veterinary College in London. But what I made was more of a financial decision. Vet school is expensive, like any higher education is. Kentucky has a in-state tuition with Auburn and Tuskegee and Alabama. They do a reciprocity between the two states, Alabama and Kentucky. So someone once told me, it kind of didn't really matter where, probably someone from Auburn's listening, but it kind of didn't matter where you went to vet school, because there is a huge financial burden for veterinary students after vet school. It's what you do afterwards, like what internship program you get with, what veterinarians you work with, because hands-on experience, and especially in equine medicine, is huge, because our caseload with horses isn't large at vet schools. Whether or not, our clinical rotations don't have a huge clinical caseload, whether or not that's because of other practices, I don't know. But so I was between Auburn and Tuskegee, got into both, and I just chose Auburn. Like I said, I'm sports athletic related. Going to an SEC school and being in Jordan-Hare Stadium watching football was pretty sweet. So that's where we spent Saturdays. But I'm not saying that was the whole decision me going to Auburn, but it was a good school. A lot of people from Kentucky are alumni of Auburn, and it was something to say you went there. So that's kind of a little bit how I chose it. And
So you mentioned internships and the value of doing different internships and placements after vet school. So what were those next steps for you to start targeting internships? Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about the vet school process when it comes to practicals and rotations. So explain that a little bit and what that process looks like throughout your years there, and then as you're transitioning into the real world, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different depending on what school you go to. At Auburn, we didn't track. And track means, say I wanted to do horses. I knew that from day one. No matter what someone told me, I wasn't going to change my mind. And so Auburn has in their ideology, they want you to not track, so you learn every species. And I think their thought behind that was when we take boards after we graduate to be able to practice veterinary medicine, it's all over all species. It's broken down percentage wise, like feline, canine, equine, bovine, large animal, cattle, exotics. You take it on everything. And so Auburn's thought was if you don't track, you're more prepared for your boards. And which is good too, because like I said, you never know, maybe something else might draw you into it. And I do appreciate that background, because I couldn't tell you how many barn cat questions I get, or, hey doc, my dog's got this weird thing. And you're like, well, maybe we'll try this, but hey, if it doesn't work, you better go see your small animal vet. But and I do some stuff with my own dogs and cats. And so that's kind of how that goes. But usually like your first 3 years, or at least at Auburn, your first 3 years were really in the classroom. And each year, you kind of start basic, they build you a foundation all the way up. Like, and they don't call it freshman, sophomore. It's like first year, second year, third year. And then at the end of your third year into your fourth year, you are in a clinical rotation setting. And those, like, say there's not, every 2 weeks or so we were in a different rotation, and you might not have taken the same one, like as my roommate. My roommate was in different ones, and she got in some that I didn't get into. Like everyone wanted to do the ultrasound class, or ultrasound rotation, but they only took 9 students. It was only offered twice. So, I mean, if you're in a class of 120, I mean, you're looking at only like 27 of you might be taking that class.
Interesting. Wow. So it can even be competitive for classes when you're in vet school with your class.
Absolutely. And so, but what Auburn did, it might have started maybe a couple years before me. They didn't track, but they let you do a focus your clinical year. So like, for example, my focus would have been equine medicine. So I was allowed to take more clinical rotations that were based on equine. And with that too, like Auburn offered quite, enough choices, because we had a research herd. So our equine reproduction rotation was a really good rotation, because we actually had mares that we could work on. And then I also did I think it was about 3 or 4 outside Auburn. And I did one with equine nutritionist. I wanted to look more into the research side of things, because being me, I'm more hands-on, and I knew I wanted to be a practitioner, like on the racetrack or on farms. So I knew getting more hands-on was important, but I also with being a veterinarian, you never stop learning. There's always something new. There's always a new breakthrough in medicine. So I was like, well, if I can learn to read research papers better, then I could better interpret that paper to take with me into the field practically and explain it to my clients. Hey, all these really big words just basically mean this, And so that's why I did one with her. I then also went with the Kentucky Racing Commission with the state vets for a couple weeks. So I kind of tried to go outside the box, whereas maybe not a traditional vet student would do. And just because I knew when I graduated, I wanted to do racehorses, or I wanted to be an equine veterinarian. And after vet school, so after, when you graduate, you're basically a licensed vet to do any species you want. It's kind of not like medical students a little bit, maybe where you might be going into a residency. So after I graduated, I could have just gone straight out, opened up a practice and said, let's go. But instead I chose to do an internship. And I did my internship at Haggard in Lexington, Kentucky. And that was a program, theirs was pretty well structured. So they had different, might have had like 1 hour class sessions with a different veterinarian within their practice on, say, interpreting blood work or emergency foals. Here's like the 3 common things to do with foals. So different things, or like interpreting sales x-rays. We had different things. So Haggard actually had a really well structured program, and there was there might have been a list of things they wanted us to accomplish by the end of it. And so that was a 1 year full internship. And I know there's probably every large equine practice in the United States offers an internship program. And then that's usually for a year. And that's when I signed on as an associate vet at Haggard after the internship and stayed there. And then now I'm at Northrop Equine. But there's also, not to confuse everybody, but there's also residencies within veterinary medicine as well. I just chose not to do one. And then those can be in just about any area you really want. You know, one of my really good friends, she's a surgery resident up in Iowa, and that would be for 3 years after, you know, she did an internship, and then she's in a program now for 3 more years. And then after the 3 years, she can be an equine surgeon. So there's just, yeah, so, but I'm just did the internship for 1 year and then now an associate veterinarian.
So you mentioned state vets for the racing commission, and that actually ties really well into another one of my questions, plural, is that I think a lot of people maybe going into the field think, well, there's just one kind of vet out there. If you're a vet, you're a vet. And maybe there is some, I don't know, some logic behind that. But there are different kinds of vets. There's regulatory vets that are specializing in certain areas. There's reproductive vets. There's racetrack vets. So explain each of those kinds of specializations and how easy is it to just move into one of those fields, or, you know, go from being a more farm-based vet to working on the racetrack, which is sort of a transition that you made as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'll try to so what I do now, I'm a racetrack vet. So I'm a private practitioner to trainers with their horses and then their owners. So that triad of us all work together for the best health and welfare of their horses. Now, above us at Churchill Downs in particular, they're privy to, they have a safety and welfare veterinarian that kind of looks broadly over the horses within their Churchill Downs' portfolio of racetracks, and that'd be Will Farmer. And then also the other veterinarian type of veterinarian at the racetrack would also be a regulatory veterinarian who'd be state employed, which would be like a Bruce Howard. So here at Churchill Downs, we could have 3 vets who are looking at the same horse, depending on what our focus is. And that's how that works. And then when I was on the farm, we could be doing, depending on what farm I was at, we be doing herd health during the breeding season. It's heavily repro and foal management, and stallion as well. And then within that, you also, besides just repro, everyone wants to talk about repro, but being a farm vet, you might also have a surgeon on board who basically focuses on locomotive problems or any surgical fixes, however that could work. So you might have, with one horse on the farm, you might have a surgeon who's on it. You might also have a theriogenologist if a mare needs something in particular, looking more into a reproductive specialist issue. So you might have a theriogenologist. You might also have their primary care doctor who just basically looks over everything else in between, or who is a liaison between all the specialists, or you might also have an ophthalmologist who maybe she has an eye problem, so one horse might have all these specialists at their willpower. And that was one awesome benefit working at Haggard. You had so many specialists underneath one roof that, or even their lab is amazing. For instance, with mares who need to go to the breeding shed, they have to have culture reports on their uterine cultures. Maybe they have to be clean, but if some aren't, a lab upstairs could develop within 2 days or 48 hours, a complete breakdown of what bug grew within this mare's uterus, what antibiotics that bug is susceptible to. And so, I mean, that's all within under one roof. And then, so you could have, so that's kind of the lowdown of the farm, basically. And I'd say some of it transitions over, for instance, leaving the farm, which was heavily herd health, reproduction, or sales work, to go into the racetrack. Herd health is still at the forefront because you're always trying to prevent diseases. For instance, they did have the herpes or the equine herpes outbreak, in Florida and a little bit in Lexington. that's just basic management of getting horses vaccinated, watching cross-contamination, watching, and monitoring, tracking horses where they're moving to and not, to try to eliminate or try to quarantine diseases. And all those terms people now understand because of COVID, and that's why in the COVID outbreak last year, when I was interviewed a few times, I'm like, horse people, they know these terms, social distancing, they know quarantine, especially in a strangles outbreak,
Biosecurity, heck yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, these terms are nothing to them, you know what I mean? Telling them they understand that. So it's amazing, I think, and I think they always talk about this initiative, this One Health initiative, where basically amongst human medicine and veterinary medicine, whether or not something was developed to work on a dog, cat, or horse, and how that was then transitioned into human health, and same with human health to veterinary medicine. I mean, there's a lot of crossover, and I think we saw some of that, like I said, with the COVID pandemic, and you're trying to prevent disease spread and this. And so, but yeah, going back to your original question, I mean, there's so many veterinarians that work on these horses, and it's just amazing, like the amount of wisdom that is put into this horse from day one. But yeah, so all the way from conception to everything, it's amazing. So
I know that you've already mentioned some soft skills. I think along the way we talked about like developing people skills, or maybe that just popped into my brain that probably is a big part of your job, is you have to be able to work a lot with people. Mm-hmm. And then you have the much more technical, hard skills. So tell us a few of both, some of those skills that maybe people can practice developing now before they even go to college or vet school, that translate really well to that are very important in your work that you do, such as communication skills, and then some of those really valuable technical skills that you use on a daily basis that you needed to go to vet school to learn, basically.
Yeah, and those are really good questions, and I could sit here and list off like,
yeah, it's like a question that's that big.
Right? Like I can go through like leadership skills list and tell you, but I mean, I think the main one that, especially kind of when you were going through your question, I always heard people always say like, "Oh, I want to be a veterinarian because I love animals." Da, 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 da. Well, yeah, one thing is though, animals don't talk to you. So you really are dealing with people a lot of times too, because that horse is probably not going to pay his medical bill either. So he's really or they're probably, they depend on that human for giving them the drug you might leave them to get better. So it really is a good lesson in just client communication and just learning just basic people skills. And at the end of the day, I think, I've seen so many different types of clients, so many different types of people, and I love it too, because that's its own case study in itself, but the main thing I think people really want when they see a veterinarian roll up is just to care about their horse, whether or not it's a little scratch, you're just putting one suture in, or a full-blown hemorrhaging mare, you're rushing to the scene. At the end of the day, they just want you to be confident, take authority, and just show that you care and have compassion for their animals. And, and even in the moment where it could be a really scary moment for them and they could be saying all kinds of crazy things to you, they really respect you, that you're there helping them. And like I said, I think that's mostly just people skills, communication. And then a couple other ones is, like a main one is time management. Because for me, I mean, my life, I have so much going. I have a personal life too, and I have a professional life as well. But just being able to understand that you can't be two places at once. Like, I mean, that's the reality of the situation. And I think I learn as I get older, and that, you could have two owners calling you with two emergencies, and learning how to triage those two emergencies and getting to the one that's more critical or something like that. Or same with, being a veterinarian, you could be called out, especially on the farms when foals are being born, you could be called out at 2 a.m. You could, or being here now with the races, I'm working more weekend hours and working, especially twilight racing, which I loved going to in high school and college, but learning that, well, twilight racing is not as fun when you're there working the races and have to get up at 3 a.m. the next morning. But learning that, you have a social life, you have friends, and I'm not saying that I don't, but learning you can't always be there for every birthday party, or like, for instance, I'm getting a new niece next week, and I might have to work, when she comes home.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So learning that you can't be two places at once, and just understanding that, you took an oath to take care of these horses or these animals in general. So I think that's just learning how to deal with those tough things where you can't be two places at once. And same with emergencies, because I've had plenty of times where two people are calling at the same time, and you're like, oh, dang, I'll get there when I can. So in that saying is time management is crucial, because getting to a farm call or a barn call or a stall call, since we're working at the Churchill, you're just going from barn to barn or stall to stall, learning how to get through those quickly and effectively and efficiently. There's no time wasting. If you've got a busy day ahead of you, you get your work done and you do it well, or you diagnose something not quickly because you're rushed, but quickly because, hey, needs to happen now so we can get this going. We can start the process, because that's the other thing I think sometimes people don't realize. When you roll up to a scene, or, a horse that has a temperature, well, yeah, I want to use, there could be 3 antibiotics I might want to use, but I have to do a physical exam, see how this horse looks and sounds. You might want to run blood work. Well, blood work, you're going to have to, depending on if you need to send it off, that might take several hours to get back. Or if you do it yourself, that might still take about an hour. So learning that you have all these different pieces of a puzzle that you have to get together quickly. So learning time management's huge.
That's a great analogy, fitting together the pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
Your whole life kind of sounds like that, between personal life, work life, dealing with emergencies, handling day-to-day things, selecting medications, how do you prioritize it all, working with the people. Woo!
Yeah. The more you think about it, you're like, oh gosh, but it's daunting, but also, you get kind of, I know this is going to sound weird, but you get kind of an adrenaline rush sometimes, because the really busy days, it all seems to work out at the end of the day, and you get it all done. And then by the end of it, you're like, whew, that was a day. But, and it all seems to work out, and it's fun and it's great. And you're like, eventually it all comes. And I think some people want to rush it, and it shouldn't be rushed. Like, and that's another thing. Speaking of that, patience is absolutely huge. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I was ambitious. I wanted things to happen quickly, but there's a long road ahead of you that takes to get to be a veterinarian, and each step is vital. Like I keep telling people, you want to be patient enough that you want to make sure your foundation is strong before you go to the next step. Like, and a good analogy for that is like when I played golf. Like, I was growing up, I always wanted to be like Happy Gilmore. You want to drive a driver right off the tee, like 500 yards or something. Like, yeah, this is awesome. But if you can't putt a ball like 2 inches in front of you, how do you expect to bump up to be hitting a driver? So, and it's the same way with probably any step. Like, you can't be a trainer until you learn how to put bandages on, because if you can't put on bandages, how can you tell your groom what to do in that situation? So
that's a great hard skill that,
yes. And that could maybe lead us into that. But having the patience just to, any aspect of life, like, I don't like to rush. I can be quick. Being quick and being rushed are two different things. But I think patience is huge. And it's not all, and that's the thing, because not everything is going to happen today. It's not all going to happen tomorrow. You have to have that patience just to sit back and realize, hey, and the faith to know that it's all going to work out. It's all going to get there. And it's the same with, when I tell clients, I'm like, inflammation, it's I can't use that word on air, but, it's going to take time to heal something sometimes. It might take 48, might take 72, it might take a week to get there, but we just have to have patience, just relax and know that it's all going to happen. It's all going to get there. And if not, then we'll call in some big guns and we can always refer something. But just patience is huge. And I think a lot of people don't have that sometimes. They want to, and just being able just to relax and I'll get there and get done.
Yeah, I think that's a life lesson for anyone at any stage of their life. Heck, there's still times I'm like, whoa, niece, take a pull, find some patience there.
Yeah, I just enjoy the moment too, because like I said, I know when I was young, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, gotta get there. And you're just like, just sit back and enjoy it. And I think there was one Flying Start graduate above me that was like, Natalie, you're gonna want to do this. You're gonna, you might have a paper due tomorrow, but this might be the only time you're in Dubai. You might not ever be back there again. Go see something. Go do something.
Yeah. Go watch some camel racing or watch some train in the morning, or like go to the Falcon Museum, or,
You know what I mean? So just enjoy the moment too, because that's the thing. It's a long road and the path is amazing. So just enjoy the path. I think there's a quote out there somewhere along the lines of that.
Yeah. Heck yeah. If it's not, then we'll give that one to you. I do. Really quickly, before we continue on, anybody who's watching right now, again, I want to throw it out there that if you want to send Natalie a question, please don't wait until the last seconds of the show. Send them now. Comment on this video, and I will get that question answered. But because we're not getting any questions yet, I will keep talking because everybody watching knows that I can talk for a very long time. Yep. So what are some, and this might not be as directly asking, I think initially I asked much more directly about the hard skills that you had to learn from vet school, but I want to rephrase that a bit. What are some more technical skills that a young person can start learning right now? For example, equine anatomy, or you mentioned bandaging, is really, really important, regardless of where you're going to work. What are some of those more, I don't even want to say simple things that people can start to practice and learn, but, technical skills or pieces of knowledge that are going to benefit them later on?
Yeah, and I think it will, and eventually it'll all come. Trust the process for sure, because you're not overnight. You're not going to learn all the anatomy pieces overnight. But if equine is what you want to do, because like I said, there's other avenues, and I know this is horse racing, so I'm probably speaking to more equine people, but learning basic horsemanship, I think, is huge. I know I rode a little bit growing up, but I didn't do pony club, but I just did everything I could especially when I was in college and living in Lexington. I worked for everybody I could. I worked for a bloodstock agent. I worked as a stud groom. I followed a trainer around. Follow everybody around and learn basic horsemanship skills, whether or not that's bandaging, just kind of feeding, just different things like that, different avenues. And because I think some people don't know basic horsemanship skills, and you kind of can't fully do veterinary medicine without understanding just basic care. Same with people too. So learning that, and then after you get that far, anatomy is something good to pick up, and that's good for any horse owner. Because sometimes I'll talk about something and someone might refer to it as something else. So basic anatomy, and I'd say you don't need to go into all the details maybe about what ligament attaches on what side of what bone, but at least know your basic bone structure, some of your large muscle bodies, because I tried, when I talk to owners, I try to talk to them just on a basic level. Some people might know better things, so I might get more in depth, but just kind of understand the basic things, ankle, hock, stifle, they're just different things, because it's just different between dogs and cats too sometimes. Or sometimes if I'm talking about a body part and there's a cat, I'll be something, but anatomy's good. Interpreting blood work is a huge tool, but I'd say maybe basic stuff. But I mean, if you own horses, it's one thing, because you can always get your blood results sent to you and kind of look at what white blood cell counts are, or just something like that. But that will come in vet school, so you don't need to really rush that. But
great. So a lot of times in my job, because my real job is I'm the equine education coordinator for the Kentucky Equine Education Project, KEEP. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of parents who will ask about, what are some programs that, or equine programs that I can get my child involved in now that don't involve having to own a horse. Because a lot of people think, well, we have to own a horse or lease a horse. And when I was growing up, I was involved in 4-H, and I was heavily involved in 4-H Horse Knowledge Bowl, which is like Equine Jeopardy. And
Yeah.
hippology, it literally means the study of the horse. You have to take an exam. You do different identifying stations. So you'd have to learn about anatomy. You'd have to learn about poisonous weeds. You'd have to identify parts of a hoof, all those different things. And along the way, through Horse Knowledge Bowl, I remember us getting asked questions about blood work. It might seem like something that, it sounds so nerdy, but it was something that I enjoyed learning as a kid. And then growing up, it ended up being very, very beneficial. And obviously, I didn't become a vet, but it's still, as anyone out there is listening to Dr. Heights right now, and you're looking at a program for your child, both Pony Club, United States Pony Club has a quiz rally, and then the 4-H Horse Project has Horse Knowledge Bowl and hippology. So check those out. There's everyone's tip of the night.
And that's another thing you mentioned too. I know when I was in vet school, we did talk about poisonous plants. And I mean, there are so many plants out there. Like just doing pasture walks are so effective because most horses have the luxury that are in our backyards are being fed enough or well enough that they don't have to scavenge and go look for weeds and different things. But being able to identify poisonous plants is crucial. And I mean, it's a learning curve for everybody too. Or there is a really good, speaking of such, there is a really good Facebook group that you can join where they can identify mushrooms and different like poisonous items like that.
Cool.
And I'm on it just because you'll get sent some photos sometimes. People like, my dog just ingested this. Is that what do you all think? And people identify them, and because there's, I guess, a group of certain people. But that's another really good skill to learn.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that's something you can really develop in 4-H. Or have that exposure at least there, especially for people growing up in the city. I mean, there might not. So.
Okay, so I'm going to ask another really loaded question. And I know some of these questions kind of have a bit of overlap, but I'm going to ask you to sum it up. What is the most important thing to know about being a vet? And that could be anything. It could be something very basic or something super technical. But what does somebody need to know now if they want to become an equine veterinarian?
Just the main thing probably for me is the discipline to work hard. Like, understand, like, you will probably have long days in the classroom and outside the classroom, but just having that discipline to say, all right, I'm here to work hard, and know you're going to have to work hard. And sometimes that comes easy for some people because there's a lot of temptations out there, sometimes not to. But, you're going to have long days, and just having that stamina to get through it. And at the end of the day, you're always going to have a grateful client or a grateful horse that's going to say thank you for that, or even a dog or a cat or whatever you get into. But that's the most rewarding thing about it. I had the luxury of working for a retirement farm, and I love that because, I mean, you see like these older horses that had these stellar racing careers, or these war horses that raced 106 times. And, they're always very grateful at the end of the day. But the most important thing is, just working hard. And like I said, there's always a motive behind it because, you're working for that one horse you're going to see at 10 o'clock at night. And so, I mean, like I said, learning doesn't stop in the classroom, though. Like, you're going to continue learning for the rest of your life. There's going to be cases that are going to teach you something. So, but yeah.
Okay, and then the next one, and this is kind of similar. Maybe your piece of advice will be the same. Well, actually, this is different. That was the most important thing to know. Now I'm going to ask for an actual piece of advice for some young person out there who wants to become a veterinarian, or maybe somebody who's changing their career and they've decided that they want to go back to vet school. That's cool too. We're inclusive of everyone here. So, best piece of advice.
And I say find a mentor. Like, that is like, and I mean, like I said, I could come up with a list of 5 most important things, but this one just didn't come to the top of my head because, like I said, you need those mentors because, like I said, you're not going to learn everything in the classroom, or you might not retain everything because, I mean, there's a lot coming at you at once. And, and like those mentors are there for you if you have a tough case too that doesn't read the book, because I can't tell you how many times, like a horse probably, well, he maybe can read something, but he didn't read the textbooks I read in school, you know? And so those mentors are like, have the 40-year experience, or like, Natalie, no, try this or that, you know, or they're there too to be with you. Like, I mean, there's enough times I have two really important mentors in my life who are veterinarians. Like, I mean, too, have mentors elsewhere. Like, I have a couple mentors who I talk to about everything else, maybe not besides veterinary medicine, you know. But they're there for you if you need something, or you might need to pick me up, which happens oftentimes than not. Like, here's me being vulnerable, you know. You need to pick up every now and again because something did wear you down. But a mentor is huge because, like I said, you're not going to learn everything in the 4 years you're in vet school. Learning never stops. And finding somebody into who you can kind of connect with. Like, there is a lot of mentor programs out there now. Like, I know the Kentucky Veterinary Medical Association is starting a new mentorship program, which I think is fantastic. But sometimes you might get paired with somebody that you don't quite connect with, and finding someone that you really connect with, whether or not that's out, you know, maybe you guys have the same hobby, or you have the same learning style, or you know, you have the same personality, or maybe it's opposite and you guys just really complete each other. But that's the most important thing, because they're going to get you through things. Or two, maybe they're old school and they teach you how the old school methods, and you have new school. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know, and you can bring something to the table for them as well. So, and it should be a working relationship like that, where both of you can learn from each other. And so, yeah, I always kind of pushed for having an older mentor, and too, you might have a younger one, doesn't make a difference, but it's just somebody that can get you through things, or teach you, learn, be there for your support system. But that is mainly the crucial thing, and everyone needs to find somebody. And like I said, it might not find them tomorrow, but be patient, and one will come along the way. And I fortunately found my two mentors actually through like externships or learning experiences, and we just meshed really well. And I should probably go back and thank like the administrator who put those programs, those internship programs together, because maybe they knew that we would get along great. I don't know, but you know, there's some credit to be had too. I just didn't find them by doing a Google search.
Right. Well, this is all great foreshadowing of a big announcement that Amplify is going to be making very soon. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge to everybody out there watching, that you might want to stay tuned to Amplify in the next couple weeks. Gosh, shameless plug, even though it was a little bit, you know, under the radar there.
Yeah.
Did we miss anything? Is there anything in that we did not cover that you would like to cover or touch on even more? I feel like
I mean, just a couple other, let's see.
Again, people, we're running out of time, so you send your questions and comments.
Okay,
Comment now.
While we're waiting for questions, like, I mean, there's just a couple, like I said, you could Google leadership skills, but another one too, just respect, just having respect. That's the main thing. Like, I know you sent me questions about, you know, maybe what they could do, experiences. Like I said, I'd say always start low. I know some people always want to start high on the totem pole, but listen, when you start working, go take the lowest job. Go do something really small and work your way up, because every step you work up, you gain respect for someone who's in that position. Because so many times people get these jobs, these leadership management jobs, but they don't understand what someone does. I don't want to say below you or beneath you, like I'm disrespecting that person, but truly, like someone who's working a job below you, who you're managing, if you never know what they're going through, what their day-to-day life is, how hard it is, what they do, you kind of can't respect them, and they can't respect you because you have never been in their shoes. So I think just having the respect to connect with people on their level and understand what they're going through on day-to-day jobs. Because like I know, like when I'm out doing veterinary medicine, and I might prescribe a treatment plan, and I might tell someone this leg needs cold hosing for 20 minutes 5 times a day. Well, I hate to say it, but if that leg doesn't truly need it, and he's the only groom in the barn with 20 other horses who's mucking stalls and everything, he's probably not going to have time to do it. So you kind of have to understand what other people's time management is and what they can
Yeah.
physically do without. So I think being in their shoes, doing a job, whether it's just doing, maybe you don't have to be a groom or be somebody and have that job, just doing a learning experience for 2 weeks or just even a day, just say, hey, can I follow you around to see what you do?
Yes.
And then another just skill at just smile. I can't tell you how many, or just saying good morning to people. I can't tell you how it's just, how people just smile back at you, and then their whole demeanor changes. Like I could be going somewhere and I just need someone to hold because it's my technician's day off, and I need someone to hold the horse or to hand me a syringe or something. And you just smile, you say thank you or good morning, how's your day? I can't tell you how you can just see someone's face light up when you ask them how their day was. And there is a language
Yes.
I work on the racetrack. Like, unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish in school. We took French classes since I was in preschool. Because, like, when I was in school, you could either take French or Spanish. And my mom was like, oh, French sounds really pretty, And we're like, yeah, I took French since I was in high school. Yes, it's a Latin language. So, yes, there is some crossover with Spanish, but at the same time, I don't speak Spanish fluently, not enough to confidently tell people something or vice versa. So there is a language barrier, but I can't tell you how often I just ask somebody in the barn, hey, how's your morning? Or how's today? And I can't tell you how happy they are, even if it is a bad morning. I can't tell you, I'm like, Natalie, bad morning. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'll be quick.
But and it makes somebody feel so good that you took the time to acknowledge them and to put yourself in their world and to understand. And I have seen this before. I've seen people walk into barns, completely disregard the grooms or the hot walkers. And I think part of that is a bit of fear for the language barrier. People get nervous about misunderstandings, lack of understandings. But like you said, you can smile at somebody and everyone knows what a smile is. It means that you're happy, regardless of what language. I know that sounds cheesy, but respect everyone. And I know now I'm just echoing what you said, but I'm gonna, just parrot that because I, cannot emphasize the importance of it enough. And I've heard young people say before that, reference positions like being a groom or a hot walker as, oh, that's going to be a stepping stone for me. And maybe it is, but never, ever forget the reality that for some people, that is not a stepping stone. That is their career, and they do that happily, or maybe they hate it, but that is what they're doing, and you have to have the utmost respect for them as a professional doing what they're doing. So
absolutely. Or like one barn foreman, I have a Spanish word of the day.
Yes, I support this so much.
I can't tell you though, sometimes it doesn't stick, but
I see a waving tail back there. Your dog is happy too.
Yeah, that's Aspen. She's actually a rescue from vet school. So she was in a high kill shelter situation. But we have.
I didn't mean to get off the word of the day, but like I just saw this tail wagging. I felt the need to point it out. We're talking about smiling. Tail wagging is like smiling too.
Yeah, saying I've said she's very protective, and so she probably doesn't smile at too many strangers actually. So Aspen might not be the friendliest one in the bunch.
Would not smile walking into the barn.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh gosh.
But she's a protector, and so she's good at her job. So that's a plus.
That's great. That's great. Okay, Spanish word of the day. I have to hear this. This is, that I love Spanish. So
yeah, and I know the French, they hate when you butcher their language, but I probably will butcher Spanish. I think today's word was dance because the horse we were trying to do something with, and it probably took us around the stall a few times. So I was like, oh, the horse is dancing with us. And he's like, ballet. And I'm like,
bailar.
Okay, I was like,
oh, baile. Yeah, baile. Es un baile. It's a dance.
that was our Spanish word of the day in that barn was dance. So
That's amazing. Look at that. See, you said veterinarians are always learning.
yeah,
You just
I
said
don't
that you're always learning.
stop. I think like I said, my mentor, he's in a different generation, so we have to teach him what memes are and different new societal things. So
Never stop learning.
no, you really don't. Whether
Well,
it's veterinary medicine or not. So, but yeah.
gosh. Well, Natalie, thank you so much for being on tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Are you on social media? Can people follow you on social media? Or
I'd say I'm all on different platforms. I might not post things, but our company does Northrop Equine. If you want to follow something that's more
yes.
I guess veterinary practice related, we are kind of getting to be better presence. And I'd say like Northrop Equine, we might have interesting cases or where we might be if we do horse shows or something. So you can follow Northrop Equine on Facebook. We do have an Instagram, but I think the Instagram is better maintained. And there's also if you really like veterinary medicine, there's so many clinics now that do case of the day or interesting cases. Or same with Instagram. If you are a vet student and like more vet related things, there's so many different now, like I say, profiles you can follow where they do cool cases, or, like I said, I don't do small animal, but there's a really good Facebook group called Emergency and Critical Care, a small animal on Facebook. And I mean, there's so many cool cases that come through there. And, or like, like I think we didn't really talk about radiographs, but having the attention to detail to see some small problems and how they manifest on x-rays are so cool. And seeing so many people with cases, like that's one cool thing about veterinary medicine is people understand that if you have a cool case, people are willing to share. If you have a case that's difficult, you kind of don't know where it's going, you have quite a big community that's willing to pour out and say, hey, I saw something like that, or I haven't, but it's kind of like my case here, try this, try that. It might not be textbook or something maybe still in the research setting that hasn't been approved, that's still experimental. You might be able to try if owners are willing to do that. So that's one cool thing about veterinary community is everyone's kind of willing to reach out, or like, and if a vet says it's cool, it might not be the coolest for an owner, but like there's been some wild cases that, you do have to pull in other people and to get some help. And that's just kind of with everybody, you need help to get through things sometimes, and to have to be humble enough to ask for it. Like that's huge, because some people are like, no, I can't do that. But it's what's best for the horse. So you will do it and suck up your pride sometimes a little bit. So, but.
Well, that was a great piece to end it on, and especially giving those resources. So that's a very good take-home point for everybody out there. Go and search those pages on social media. And if you missed their names, this video will be recorded. It will be on our social media channels. You can go ahead and replay that and grab those. And if you have any follow-up questions for Natalie, do send them to me and I will pass them on to her and make sure that I ask any of those career-related questions. So with that, thank you so much, Natalie, for being on tonight. And I hope to see you again very soon in person.
Absolutely. Next time you're on the backside, just holler. So
yes, absolutely. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone who joined in on this episode tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I just love Natalie. She's so engaging, and I would love to talk her into letting me shadow her again because, regardless of your position, even though I'm in education, I never want to stop learning either. And so I think it's important to keep reaching out and making those connections and learning about different aspects of the industry. So if you guys are new to Amplify Horse Racing, don't forget that you can find us on Instagram at Amplify Horse Racing, Twitter at Amplify Racing, Facebook at Amplify Horse Racing. We're also on LinkedIn and YouTube. We have an amazing video library on amplifyhorseracing.org, our website. And again, stay tuned in the upcoming weeks for maybe a really cool announcement. My name is Anise Montpleasure. You can send me an email at info@amplifyhorseracing.com. And I will see you guys on the next episode.